Hello friends, do you remember ControlNet? Do you remember having this and turning it into this and this and this and this and this again? Power of ControlNet, now updated to ControlNet 1.1 with a lot of quality of life updates. Let me show you how to install it, what's new, and how you can use it to perfect your images. Let's get started. And in honor of my biggest donor, Glenn, what's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus. Alright, so first let me show you how to get this installed and working properly. If you have an old version of ControlNet, you can just go inside your extensions here and you can check, here's my ControlNet, make sure that is clicked, check for updates, and you can see here it says Web UI ControlNet behind. Now I will just press apply and restart UI, and that will update my ControlNet to the latest version. Now we can see down here I have ControlNet and its version 1.1. Now, if you don't have it installed, you need to go to this web page. I'm going to link this in the description below, and they have an install guide here. It's very easy. You don't have to follow everything here. You just have to take this, copy paste this URL, go back into your Stable Diffusion, go into the extensions tab, install from URL, copy that in there, press install. When you've done that, it will be in the list here. Now, if you don't see ControlNet here, you need to just restart your Stable Diffusion altogether by closing down your command window and open it back up. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about and you have no idea what Stable Diffusion is, you're going to need to install that, and you can follow my ultimate guide for that. If you're on a computer, I'm going to link it up in the right corner here right now. If not, find it in the video description. The next step is you're going to download the models. And if you followed either the link in the video description or in the link that you can see from the ControlNet page on GitHub, you're going to get to this page. And what you want is the Python files here, the PTH. And you can download all of them if you want to. Now they're fairly big. Now, not big for Stable Diffusion models, but they're 1.45 gigabytes each. So if you don't have the space to have all of these, I'd recommend getting just a few. And then I would get the depth here. I would get the canny, this one, the open pose, and the scribble. Now it's a matter of preference, but those are the four I would recommend that you start with if you don't have the space. You don't need to download the YAML files because they will automatically download for you. When you've downloaded those files, you're going to go into your Stable Diffusion Web UI folder. Then you're going to find extensions. You're going to find Web UI ControlNet, models, and then you're just going to drop them all in here. And as you can see, I have the YAML files here, but I have not downloaded them manually. Stable Diffusion has done that automatically for me once it has detected that I have the PTH file and loaded up ControlNet, restarted and everything. Once that's finished, you will have ControlNet installed and it will look something like this. You will have the little tab here. You can press that and you will have most likely ControlNet Unit 0. If you want multi-ControlNet, meaning more than one ControlNet unit here, you will have to go into settings up here, find ControlNet down to the left, and then it says there multi-ControlNet max models amount requires restart. And I have set this to 2 now. You can just slide this to however many you want. Just remember to press the apply settings and then restart. Once you have it set up like this, this is where you will drop your input image. And for this, I will show you how to get that. You can either get any image you want, like a photograph, but if you're looking for something more specific, I would recommend that you look at Post My Art, which is also be in the video description below. Here you can load up any model that you want. You also have some pre-made scenes that you can load of poses, and here's some kind of fighting scene, people jumping and then having a sword fight. Here's someone dancing. But what I like the most about this is actually the animations. So let me show you in a bit. Let's say I have this character here and I want to put this into a pose. Let's do the robot here, for example. Anyway, let's move this around. Let's say, oh, let's do a kick here. I'm trying to move up the leg and it's, oh shit, it's all wonky, whatever. It's moving around, but oh, this is hard. Well, it's not super hard, but it's a little finicky if you haven't used these kinds of programs before. Now we have some kind of a kick here. Would you say that this is a good kick? I wouldn't say that this is a good kick. Yeah, you can see the foot here and the leg here. It's all messed up. So I could spend like 5-10 minutes to fix this. Or I could go into the animation. So if I select this or just press a little character down here, if you go to the bottom left, you have animations and poses. So I mean, first off, you can just pick a pose. So let's say I take this one, for example. I mean, that's great. I've now written wave. Let's take this one here. And now we get a full animation. And you might think, well, what am I going to do with an animation, Seb? Well, here's the kicker. You can just drag here and find the perfect frame that you want for your animation. Or, well, your still image. So let's say we want this here. So now we have a perfect pose that feels alive because it came out from an animation. Let's try another one. So here we have another animation and it's just a simple greeting, but let's take this one. There we go. And now we have a pose that we might like. And what we can do is we can press the little export button up here. And what's great about this is that you can actually export to open pose. Now you can export the image directly like this, but then you would retain a lot of this in the depth map or the canny. With the open pose, you're going to get just the pose. You can scroll in and out like this on the side, but if you scroll here on the little mouse, nothing's happening. So just remember that. In the same way, if you want to move the output window, you need to select the little move here. If you don't, you're just going to rotate. So let's say we want this. We press export open pose and I have saved this as wave. Now, if you go inside your Stable Diffusion and we drag the wave image into here, you have this exact pose. Now we need to remember to click enable here on the ControlNet. And for the model here, we're going to choose the Control V 1.1, SD 1.5 or 15, and then open pose. Now there's a lot of numbers and stuff here. So first is ControlNet, then is the version, which is 1.1. Then there is a letter, which is either P, U, or E. P is production, that's basically a final one. E experimental, I think U was unfinished or untested. It doesn't matter. P is the most final one. And then we have the Stable Diffusion model it works for. In this case, the 1.5. As you can see down here, I have a model that works for Stable Diffusion 2.1, for example. And then the last here, that's the kind of model that we're working, which in this case would be the open pose. Now, since we already have the finished open pose here, we don't need a preprocessor. If you would have a photograph, you would need to use the preprocessor here. For example, open pose full or open pose. Now the weight here, that's basically weighting the ControlNet model. So the higher this is, the more it will follow this open pose. So if you set this to lower, it will kind of follow it, but not fully. 1 is usually a good value here. The starting control step and the ending control step, that's where the ControlNet will start. So now we have it starting at 0, which is the beginning, and it ending at 1, which is, well, 100%. So it's going to run for the full duration. If I set this to, for example, 0.5, then it will not run ControlNet until 50% of the render. Then for the remaining 50%, it will run ControlNet. Likewise, you can set this to 0 and this at 0.5. Then it will run ControlNet for 50%, no ControlNet in the end. We want it for the full duration. Now, guess mode has been renamed in the control mode. Usually have it set it balanced, but you can also set my prompt is more important or ControlNet is more important. Most of the time, you're not going to bother with the resize. Try to work with the same resolution here as you are up here. So let's try to create something. Let's say woman waving. We're going to up the weight here a little bit, and then we're going to add fault negative, Ghibli, digital oil painting, and skin enhancer. And all of these styles are the preset styles that I use. You can find them in the video description. I'm going to up the sampling steps to 25. We're running Euler A. We're not running restore faces or high-res fix. However, high-res fix is supported in ControlNet 1.1. And as you can see on our results here, we have 2 women waving, and they're very close to the open pose that we had in below here in ControlNet. Now the hands and face are kind of messed up, but that's not really what we're looking for in a 512 by 512 here. We're trying to find the pose, and if we're going to continue with the image, we would probably upscale it through an image-to-image pass to double the resolution and then start in painting the details. So this is mainly to show you how open pose works. Now let's say that we want to improve on our character here. So I've sent this into image to image, and I've also loaded ControlNet here. So these are similar to the settings we had before. We have the open pose, we have the open pose here, and I've enabled this. Now I'm just gonna up this to 1024 by 1024. We're gonna lower this to about 0.6. I'm changing this to a slower sampler. I wanted 2 chars for this and want to up the steps just a little bit. Now, as this is a slower sampler, I usually don't use it for my first generation step in 512 by 512. But for finishing touches, when I've found the composition, I use this to try to get as good an image as possible. So now we are running this in 1024 by 1024. And you can quickly see, if you compare just in the generation here, this is much better. Even the hand is better compared to the left one. And the face is holding together great. Now you can't see it in full resolution yet as it's rendering, but we'll get there in a second. And even the second image is turning out much better, it seems. So we have the first one here. Face is kind of good. The hand is okay-ish. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers there. I think that one is just actually fading out into oblivion. This one's much better when it comes to the hand. Just some artifacts down here. So this really is the power of ControlNet, and with the updates to 1.1, it will be much easier to use. Well, not easier, but we get some better results. You might be asking, well, I've seen all this. What are you talking about, Seb? What's even new in 1.1? Well, let me quickly show you. On the page here, we have new features in ControlNet extension 1.1. And it says perfect support for all ControlNet 1.0, 1.1, and T2I adapter models. So you can even run the style adapters and other models in 1.1. It has support for the high-res fix, something we mentioned earlier. Now, I personally don't use high-res fix a lot. I know a lot of you like to use it, and that's fine. All good. It's just a different kind of workflow. What I do is what you just saw, text to image in a low res and then image to image to a high res. High res fix is basically doing that in one step. Now it says here perfect support for, well, basically mask. So something I enjoy, which is in painting, now has ControlNet support. So that's a great feature. They have something called Pixel Perfect Mode, and that's a little button. If you go back down here, it says Pixel Perfect. And that's if you have, for example, something that's different in size to what you're trying to do, you can fix the Pixel Perfect thingamajig here. And yeah, they write here. Now, if you turn on Pixel Perfect Mode, you do not need to set prepressor resolutions manually. The ControlNet will automatically compute the best annotator resolution for you so that each pixel perfectly matches Stable Diffusion. And that's mainly for this. Let's say we have the canny here, for example, the resolution here. Now our image is 512, so it doesn't matter, but if it's not. And it says user-friendly graphical user interface and pre-processor preview. We reorganized some previously confusing UI like canvas width, height for new canvas, etc. And I agree. This was confusing. I made an error in my first ControlNet video, and I'm sorry if you've been following that particular advice. And they changed a couple of bugs in the guess mode, etc, etc. And by the way, here's a quick example of the guess mode. So here's an input. If you have ControlNet mode balanced, it's kind of listening a little bit to the prompt, a little bit to ControlNet. If you control mode, my prompt is more important. You see, it's a stylized prompt, and in control mode, ControlNet is more important. It listens more to, well, ControlNet and a ControlNet input. Now let's say you have a photograph or, well, it doesn't matter, anything. You can use that for your ControlNet as well. Let's download this image here. We're going to reset everything, hop back into our text to image. We're going to drag our ControlNet image here. We're going to enable. We're going to set this to canny. We're going to activate Pixel Perfect here. We're going to load the canny model there, and we're gonna have, let's have beautiful Studio Ghibli house in autumn bottom. I'm gonna up the weight by control arrow up. We're gonna load the same as before. We're gonna load the Ghibli, digital painting, and the default negative. Let's run 4 images here, and we are generating. So now we have our 4 results. We have the preview of the canning model. So this is what ControlNet uses. Let's look at what we had here. So these are our results. Let's take this one here. I'm gonna send that to image. Again, we're gonna up the size, change it to Keras. I'm loading my styles again. Now, if you have the styles up here, you don't need to reload them. And for the image to image step, you don't have to use ControlNet again. So this time we're gonna skip that. And here we have our finished image of the house. And if you compare that to the original input here, I think it's pretty good, pretty cool. Now you can get more or less close to the input depending on the settings you have below. Anyway, I hope you had fun, and I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Pose My Art, for first of all helping me with the channel and my videos, and also for supplying this great resource for users. Having this together with ControlNet really is very powerful. I hope you had fun in our little video here. As always, have a good one, and yeah.